Hello, welcome to Biafra Image. In this channel, we share news about current happenings around the globe. If this is the first time you're coming across our video, please like, share, and also subscribe to this channel so that anytime we post a new video, you will get notified. Give them back to back to back, back to back. Give them back to back to back. Professor Ojuanya has been on the news for some time now, so I finally found the interview she granted.
So we have a very, very, very special guest with us today, Dr. Ojuanya, and she is a professor at Carnegie Mellon University in applied linguistics.
Yeah.
And so welcome. You are our first in studio. Get the claps again, brother. Yeah. Since we transitioned to in person, you are our very first guest, and I have a million questions for you. So I would like to start with what went down, and then work our way backwards.
Okay.
So there were individuals that, of course, the news stopped, wall to wall, clean coverage. Yeah. But there were other individuals, particularly those people who were directly impacted by...
Who were colonized, who were, subjugated by the crown.
Right.
All black and brown people around the world.
Right, terrorized.
Absolutely. The reason we all speak English is because of the crown.
Right. We have a person in one hood that's Kenyan, right?
Right, yeah.
Our brother Vic, and he had a very long, detailed post. And it was stuff that I didn't know, that I learned, particularly about what happened in Kenya that I did not know. But I know you got on African and Indian jewelry. I know that's not yours, you know what I'm saying, Queen. Yeah. Dr. Anya, you got on the Bird app.
Oh my goodness, that
Okay. I admit.
And so you just,
Well, she
did
hadn't
you?
died.
Okay, she hadn't died. Okay.
No, she had not yet died.
Right.
And I wake up in the morning. I get my children off to school.
Right.
And I'm still sort of in bed-ish and trying to move in my day.
Come a little closer to the mic, please.
And I'm looking through the news, and the BBC was reporting that she was in some sort of critical state.
Right.
With imminent death.
Right.
And I had an emotional reaction.
Absolutely.
And had an emotional outburst.
Yeah.
I was triggered by this news.
Absolutely.
It went in deep places of pain and trauma for me, due to my family's experience with the rule of this monarch. And I went on the Bird app and I shared my feelings in an emotional outburst that was not planned. It was very spontaneous, but it was extremely real.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think real, it was a lot of real reaction to from particularly communities and people who were terrorized by British rule. To me, how do you, it started this whole conversation, but so did you walk away and come back? At what point when you tweeted it out that then all obviously then everybody starts with, were you watching this in real time, or did you kind of set your phone down, do some running around and come back and look and was oh my God, what did I tweet? Or
Well, I was going to teach my seminar. I have a 3-hour seminar on Thursdays.
Wow.
And I was also prepping for that. So this is sort of my morning, getting into my day, looking at email, looking at Twitter, doing all kinds of things. So I put the tweet out, and it was already sort of getting reactions by kind of the usual suspects. I have my interlocutors on Twitter, people I talk to regularly or people who come at me regularly.
Right.
So I engaged with the tweet for a little bit. I didn't just kind of put it out there and go, because then people started to immediately attack.
Right.
Because it was something that some perceived as outrageous for me to have said. And I engaged in some back and forth and responding to some people that were saying this, and then other people that were saying other things. So it was a bunch of exchanges that I had underneath that tweet. And then it was time to, log off and go mind the business that pays me. So I went to prep for class and eventually go teach my class, and, turned off my phone and went out for 3 hours. And then when I came back was when I saw that the world had exploded.
Yes. Yeah. So and I
saw Bezos.
Absolutely. So you're at that point when you go, I guess, on Twitter and your notifications are off the charts.
Yeah.
And you see, we're talking about Jeff Bezos, right? We're talking about arguably the wealthiest man in the world now, really, because then he has a following, right?
Yeah. So what I saw first was sort of the responses to the immediate tweet.
Right.
And then I made the second tweet, which was a follow-up to that, saying
Absolutely.
that I if anyone was expecting me to do anything other than, or say anything other than what I did,
Yes.
then they could just keep wishing upon a star.
Can I read that?
Please do.
Because this was when I jumped in with my retweet. I don't know what that means, but I was like, oh yes, this is the energy I'm feeling. If anyone expects me to express anything but disdain for the monarch who supervised a government that sponsored the genocide that massacred and displaced half my family, and the consequences of which those alive today are still trying to overcome, you can keep wishing upon a star.
Yeah. In other words, I said what I fucking said.
Right.
Straight like that.
Come on, yes. Yes.
See, I want to, because you are a professor, a doctor, an expert in language and language learning, I've always said that we do not have the language or the education to really process a lot of issues, especially when it's the people who have been hurt, oppressed, and harmed have the mic. And so when you're going and you're talking, I mean, you didn't say anything, in my opinion, problematic. The way I talk about people who have harmed me, you are a saint for a comparison. And so when you're seeing all this visceral reaction, is a part of it this is why you're mad?
Well, I don't know. You should know sort of my backstory on Twitter. This ain't my first dragging.
Correct.
I get regularly, attacked on Twitter. This is sort of the existence of a loud Black woman on Twitter, unapologetic, feminist, left-leaning. So I get it from sort of multiple corners, right? So it's not, I was surprised at the scale because this had already flown much further than anything I had ever encountered. But it wasn't that different.
It wasn't your first rodeo.
It was not my first rodeo.
I've been down this before.
This is Twitter for me.
Absolutely.
Regularly. I remember my worst dragging, till this one was, when I said that Squid Games was racist. That was a dragging across continents in 40 languages, I said the portrayal of the Pakistani immigrant, the way that they had him sort of growling, deferent, and
I still haven't seen Squid Game yet.
Yeah, the storyline, things like that. So that was it wasn't abnormal for me.
You just kind of blew my mind, until you said it.
Didn't realize who she was.
No, I'm saying the show, because that would, if Squid Games was white people, that would be the Black guy.
Yeah.
Kind of that, archetype of the mystical protector Black person that looks out for the star white person. And until you just said it, I never thought of it like that. No, that's powerful analysis.
He played the...
Don't start Miracle.
I brought some parallels.
Right.
Because every engagement I have on Twitter, no matter how, messy or off the chain or just foolish shenanigans, tomfoolery, I like to teach. I am fundamentally a teacher. And I bring evidence and support for the claims that I make. So I gave examples that in that show, the cultural parallel to what I was familiar with was the noble savage.
Right.
And, Uncle Tom.
Right. Yeah.
And so I went into that, and I didn't want to, say that it was exactly like the Korean context.
Right.
But I just wanted to draw some parallels and make some comparisons. And, anyhow, just to say that was the worst. And I think the second worst was the last time I talked about the royal family, when I called Prince Harry a jobless clown. And
Even the royal family
What a
ain't no
gunshots,
smile.
brother.
Everybody know Harry don't look like Charles, man.
Who said that? Huh? Who said that? You said that? Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, was that
bars from the new album?
Harry don't look like Charles, man. That's what I'm saying.
Don't talk
If you
about
know-
Meghan's husband like
If you
that.
know, you know.
Listen,
If you know,
I
you
know that he is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts,
right,
but I was
right.
just talking about the fact that I didn't see sort of any discernible career or source of income, or he was living in his grandmother's house, and
She's not wrong.
was
She's not wrong.
marrying up was what I said, because
Wow.
Meghan came
Yes.
fully formed with a career, with a life, with a history, and sort of brought him up. And that's what I said, and I was ripped a brand new asshole for that one.
Wow.
And okay, that's Twitter.
Yeah.
I just mute and move. And so this is kind of the backdrop. But then when I saw Bezos' tweet, I knew this shit was different.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And I thought to myself, but why? Because I had already seen all the reactions, The Irish were river dancing across the internet.
Well, another one bites the dust.
You know?
Yeah.
That's a discourse that we've yet to have.
Playing music, they were...
They did the chant
you
at
know,
the stadium.
At the football stadium.
Right.
This is in a box.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Damn.
I mean,
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
literally half the planet was overjoyed.
Absolutely. And I had said something about this on social media. I had said the entire world, the longest reigning symbol of imperialism, oppression, racism, genocide, and theft is dead. White people, how dare you mock the majesty?
So I was wondering, why me? When there were so many people, white people, who were saying much worse things, much more violent. I never wished her death. She was already on that path. I never said anyone should kill her.
Semantics.
Right.
All I said was that may she suffer in the way that millions of people have suffered at her hand.
Right.
That is what I said. And Bezos and his dusty ass
Yes.
comes at me and literally puts a target on my back.
Right.
He didn't criticize my words.
Yes.
He criticized me.
Right.
He said that I was not contributing anything to make the world better. And of course, he would be the expert in those who improve the world and do good and are, a boon for humanity.
Right.
So, me,
Yeah.
I came back. And I said to him exactly what I thought of him. First of all, I cursed him in my father's language to begin. And secondly, I reminded him that he was a colonizer like that queen.
100%. Yeah.
And that the millions of people that he has harmed in this world, including his employees,
100%. Yeah.
will remember him just as fondly as I do my colonizers.
Wow. And
That's-
he didn't quote tweet that one.
He did.
He stepped off his phone on that one.
And funny enough, Twitter detective agency is a brilliant thing,
Right.
because I didn't even have that on my mind, but apparently like within the hour or something, somebody linked it to the fact that previously, because people were asking the big question, why her? Why her?
Right.
What in the world would Jeff Bezos know about Ujwanya? Like, how in the world would Ujwanya enter into the eye of Jeff Bezos?
Right.
Oh.
And Twitter detective agency pulled up a tweet that I had made a couple weeks back
Yeah.
at Netroots Nation.
Yes.
Where I met Chris Smalls and I took a picture with him. I was overjoyed. I was elated.
Yeah.
I find him to be a remarkable young man, and he has achieved what was seemingly impossible, unionizing a whole Amazon warehouse.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I tweeted my joy at having met such an extraordinarily powerful and brilliant Black man.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the picture, went about my business. That was like weeks ago. But then Twitter detective agency raised that up and said, here we go.
Right. Why he chose you.
This is how I entered that man's eye.
Yep.
And not in a good way.
Right.
So I do not presume that Jeff Bezos knew my name or that I existed.
No way.
However, he pays people
Yeah.
to track Chris Smalls and his activities and the activities of the Amazon Labor Union. And I definitely pinged on their radar with that tweet and that picture and the praise for the man and his work.
Right.
And so absolutely 100%, Jeff Bezos and his small petty ass came at me, exposed me to threats, to danger,
True.
Oh, wow.
put a big old target on my back for his 5 million followers.
Right.
And if you can think of like the influence he has, a single tweet of his would have millions of impressions.
100%.
I mean, his influence is outerworldly.
Right.
And he put my tweet there
Right.
with my words, my picture,
Okay.
in the middle of a storm already
Oh, no,
brewing
no.
against me.
Right.
And he told the world, I ain't shit.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, my inbox, within like 5 minutes, 500 emails, just like that. I had to disable the contact me button on my website
Wow.
because people were coming in there calling me everything,
Sure.
but my given name. I don't open any of those emails, but they put it already in the subject line. Nigger, 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 nigger.
Right.
Cunt, bitch.
Yeah.
Genetically inferior. I mean, I heard all kinds of things, It's just like, Jeff Bezos did that.
Yeah.
So,
Didn't you have a song about that?
I did do a
Yes.
song called Rob Jeff Bezos. I don't know if you ever heard the song, but
And didn't you say something about some people in Nigeria too?
yeah, actually.
Could you give us the ball?
Wow,
please?
wow, damn, this is kind of a full circle moment. I say looking out the window with the Draco fully loaded, planning how to rob Jeff Bezos. How much is 1 trillion when converted into pesos? Turn half into Naira. I got family in Lagos.
And this artistic expression.
Of course, yeah, it's art.
Artistic.
It's art.
I'm not trying to be Rico or
But
no.
that was,
Rap
that was I put that out in 2020 in the midst of I wanted a song to kind of encapsulate all I was seeing at that moment.
Yeah.
Particularly following the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and to me, one of the things that hadn't been talked about and still isn't talked about enough to me is the transfer of wealth that we saw happen during this pandemic, where individuals like Jeff Bezos, I saw an article that said that Amazon and Jeff Bezos made so much money during the pandemic that he could give every single employee $100,000 and have as much money as he had pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, because it kind of brought this conversation, and one of the things that I loved about it, and hope that because you saw, obviously, like you said, here's Jeff Bezos who targets you,
Yeah.
for a lot of these reasons, including, you're bigging up Chris Smalls, and then all of these white supremacist, racist
Absolutely.
kind of come out of the woodwork. But then you also had, particularly Black women on Twitter, really rally behind you. And then they started to take on, because I seen
Yeah.
somebody say Jeff, when we already got the party planned for when it was your time.
Yeah.
I mean, we gonna celebrate for a week. So I kind of saw. So did you also see that and
So at that point, they had cut me off of Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my suspension.
Oh, so you were suspended for that tweet?
Yeah. Not
Wow.
the tweet against Bezos, the one talking about the Queen.
Right.
Yeah. So, first of all, I do not have any intention to rob or support robbing Jeff Bezos.
Me neither. That's a song.
You know, this of course
Absolutely,
this
yes.
is artistic expression
Artistic
that I'm
expression.
listening
That
to.
was just Siri X, if y'all are.
And
Respect the jokes. Hashtag respect the jokes.
and I don't deny Jeff Bezos money, right? He owns a business.
100%.
He should earn from his business.
Absolutely.
Right? Also, the people that work for Jeff Bezos, I don't want them to lose their jobs either.
100%.
He's supporting the livelihood, of 1 million employees or et cetera.
Right. We like them to have breaks.
Exactly. And be able to pee.
Right. And be able
Yes.
to have a livable wage.
Exactly.
But like you said, we're not trying to take down Amazon.
Not at all.
Right.
If we're trying to take
Miracle?
down Amazon,
Miracle said that. Well, I don't know. I mean,
I'm just saying that, I am not here
Right.
to, take the food out of the mouths of people who work for Jeff Bezos.
Absolutely.
I am like Chris Smalls and other people just asking that they be treated better.
Yes.
And their rights as workers be respected.
Yes.
So, that. And okay, the timeline continues. So after that,
So you get suspended. Like, what does Twitter send like an email, like saying like you've been suspended or your account's been suspended, or you just go to log on and you can't?
I just can't.
Okay, got you.
And what it says to me is that this tweet has been flagged for being inciting violence and being abusive and targeted harassment. That's what the notification said to me. And then it said that, do you want to delete it or do you want to appeal? And I said, appeal. And I wrote down, my reasons for not wanting to delete it because I did not agree that I was inciting violence, nor was I engaging in targeted harassment.
Right.
Yeah.
But then while they're processing your appeal, you're locked out of the system. So you can't get on. So so the aftermath when Black women started to ride for me and start to get attacked themselves, and I didn't see that because that early I was already out.
Right.
And I was out for almost a week after. So everything I saw happening on Twitter was secondhand through my partner, Dr. Siri Alang. And she was the one kind of reporting to me what was going on. And, and of course, at this time, I had already had calls from, my administrators and things like that, saying that there would be a response. They didn't tell me what the response would be, but definitely this has come to the point that they've seen it and they're going to have to respond to it. And I said, and I also, at that point explained to them my perspective and where I came from and what the British monarch had done and what she represented and what I was, the truth I was telling and how I was speaking from not just my pain, but the collective pain of my family and my broader Igbo people. So, I told that to them and then they said, okay. And that was it. Whatever else I heard from them was when I was hearing it on the news along with everybody else or when I saw the statement being released, et cetera.
Absolutely. And so I had two more questions and I want to open it up. Has this experience changed the way, because like you said, you kind of go in, you use Twitter, you kind of almost like prepare, like you said, to teach when you go in there. Has this experience changed the way you're looking at engaging in social media, or do you intend to continue to engage in the way you have?
So even in this, my most intense moment on social media, fundamentally, more than I am anything else in this world, more than I am a mother, more than I am a researcher, more than I am a sister, a community member, I am a teacher. And if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to teach.
Right.
And even in that very intense moment of profound pain and my outbursts, my emotional outbursts of deep, deep pain, I was teaching. I followed up explaining that there was a genocide against the Biafra people.
Right.
Right? The who were trying, the Igbo people who were trying to form an independent nation of Biafra. They wanted to be separate from the country that the British Empire had imposed on us, which was this country of Nigeria, where they kind of took a bunch of independent nations who don't have anything to do with each other, don't even speak each other's language, don't relate. Many of them were even enemies and warring at the time, smushed them all together and drew these arbitrary lines around them and called them countries and named those countries.
Right.
And it said, now y'all get along and do a country for us and be a union for us. And then go through, contentious, bloody independence processes that never really yield any real independence. You're still part of a commonwealth afterwards.
True.
And you have the eternal meddling in your affairs and the eternal extraction of your resources and the eternal fomenting of divisiveness and infighting in order to be able to control you. This is what an oppressor does, a colonizer does. These are tactics and strategies of dominance.
Right.
We were subjected to that as a larger unit of Nigeria. And then when the Igbo people said, we want our own thing, let's go and do that. Well, it so happened to be that the territory that this new country of Biafra was going to be in included very, very rich oil reserves. And the British were not going to let go of that.
Wow.
And the people that they had put in power, their puppet Nigerian governments weren't going to do that either because they needed it for the Nigerian project.
Right.
And Britain needed it for its own interests and uses. So Great Britain got directly involved in this civil war and in the war for independence and decided that they would do everything to make sure that Biafra did not go.
Wow.
And this everything meant directly funding genocide of the people of Biafra. This is what happened. This is the historical record. I'm not saying anything that's in doubt or in question, right?
Yeah.
Even when it was happening during this period of 1967 to 1970, the BBC themselves were producing documentaries, decrying it, covering all the protests that were happening in Great Britain.
This is recent.
Yeah, this is very recent. My sister, for example, is turning 60 this month. And my sister was alive at that time. She was like 5, 6.
Right.
My other brother was alive at the time, and my second brother was in my mother's belly. She was pregnant during this time, running from village to village to escape the bombs that they were throwing at villagers. So when we tell you that 3 million people, some people have said up to 5 million, 6 million, or some people quote low. So the sort of average agreed upon number that you really cannot contest is about 3 million. When you think of a Holocaust,
Right.
this is a Holocaust.
Absolutely.
Now, the Holocaust that we're most familiar with is the most famous one against the Jewish people,
Yes.
where they, 6 million of them were massacred.
Absolutely.
So at the most sort of conservative estimation, they did half of us, half that number. Civilians, these are non-combatants, and more than 1 million children alone starved.
Wow.
The British paid for that. And Queen Elizabeth II was ruler. She was monarch at that time. This was the government that she was supervising. Now, I don't buy this notion that she was just a statue, if you will.
I was going to ask you that question.
Or
Reading my
a
mind.
decorative plant.
Right.
Or, some kind of, I don't know, tchotchke sitting on the shelf.
Right.
This was a ruler. This was someone, the very crown that she had on her head, signifying the fact that she's a monarch, was made from plunder,
Right.
diamonds, blood diamonds.
Absolutely.
So the throne that she's sitting on is a throne of blood. So you cannot say that she was just this little old lady or this figurehead that really had nothing to do with anything, and it was just the British government that were making their deals and, governing however they would, without relating it directly to her, because she directly benefited her very position as a monarch, the palace that she lived in, the opulence, the obscene levels of wealth that she enjoyed.
Absolutely.
Were all paid for by our blood. And I don't say this figuratively, and I don't say this as something that, this long remote past, let's say, of human enslavement, which on my mother's side, she's from Trinidad, my ancestors over there were enslaved by the British. I'm talking about recent living memory of people still alive today. Her money, her government funded our slaughter. And people expected me to be calm or to be, I don't know what they expected.
Right.
When the person who literally paid money for bombs and guns and military supplies to come and massacre your people is dying. Right. You're not supposed to dance. What's the reaction to that?
I remember when we found out that Osama bin Laden was killed, and Americans celebrated, right? Because they held him responsible for 9/11, which just passed, and that terror that occurred and those 3,000 or so people that died.
Yeah.
And it's like, but when it's our terror, when it's our pain, when it's our loss as Black and brown people, and we, particularly when we express it in a way that challenges, white supremacy, the white supremacy dominant narrative, and this, kind of almost like Disneying idea that people had of a queen, then all of a sudden it's like we're always told to be civil, to be calm, to be peaceful as Black and brown people. And so, but when it's somebody that you feel harmed America, you can dance, you can celebrate, you can take out your flags, and that's held up. You can have lynchings were celebratory things in the history of the United States of America, where they would have a parade and party and
take children.
Right.
An entire family would go and enjoy the spectacle
100%.
Of murdering Black people.
100%. 100%. So my last question is, a support petition has been produced.
Yeah.
4,000 or 5,000 people have signed this petition. So when you see that support, just how do you feel in that moment?
It felt so good, right? Especially since I was locked out of Twitter,
right?
Battling this suspension and having my account, temporarily suspended. And just seeing the outpouring of support from people who may or may not have agreed with how I expressed my pain, but certainly believed that I had a right to do it.
Absolutely.
In however I did it. And that was so important to me. And it was wonderful to see that, because not only that letter with, 4,000, 5,000 signatures
was like fellow academics, journalists, students.
Exactly. People in this country, in the United States, and around the world. And it wasn't just academics, it was professionals, it was community members, students, all sorts of people were there saying, we got your back.
Absolutely.
Now, once again, they were not endorsing what I did or the words that I used, but they were endorsing my right to speak my truth and to speak my pain and not be terrorized and abused and violently targeted for it. When Jeff Bezos put that target on my back. And then, in addition to that letter, there was also a letter from my colleagues at my university, other faculty, staff, other employees, with more than 100 names on that letter as well. And then another letter from students at Carnegie Mellon who filled, last time I looked, like 8 pages of signatures. And not even on a list form, in like block text,
Wow.
one after
Wow.
the other, thick.
Beautiful.
And even on campus, they spray painted on sort of the main quad. There's this wall, this white wall, where they spray painted RIP colonialism on one side, and on the other side, let her speak. These were Carnegie Mellon students who did that. So when I saw all of that, the outpouring of support from the broader academic community and in general, people outside of my institution, along with my colleagues at my institution and the students that I serve at this institution, I cannot, and I'm, a words person. Words are my business. I'm a linguist. I cannot even find the words to tell you just how thankful and grateful and joyful I felt.
Beautiful.
In such days of pain, right? Because I'm a human being. I act tough, right? But you can only take so much abuse.
True.
So in all of that pain, to get this kind of support, I realize I have people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have people.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Wonderful. And that includes us in one hood as well. You got us too. Beautiful. Beautiful.
That was deep. That was intense. But I mean, this speaks to the volume about like how these ripples effects are felt across the globe when
100%.
you talk about the monarchy. Like, not everybody is going to react favorably to the crown, and this is a lesson to people. It should be a lesson to people
Absolutely.
globally that the people of the global majority have been the ones that have been forced into subjugation, been the one forced into oppression, been
Right.
the ones who have felt the tyranny of the crown firsthand,
And,
right?
and told to just suck it up
And just
right?
deal with it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
because
Be
of all,
happy
because
you
we
got
got
something.
the East India Trading Company, right? Because we have a gold standard, because
Right.
we have English as this lingua franca spoken around the world. Because we have all these things that fall under the umbrella of the crown that quote unquote benefit the world. We're supposed to be quiet and just accept it
Right.
because they civilize the savage,
Right.
right? And these are things that we're supposed to be placated with.
And I have to also say that my quarrel is not with the British people.
Right.
The British people are subject to her rule as well.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
There is no quarrel with the British people. They are subjects. They don't elect her.
This is something that's extrapolated, right? And I have a lot to say about this. Like, I have so much to say about this. In the West, patriotism equals prejudice, right? You look at what people talk about patriotism is in the States. You wave around the flag. That's a symbol of violence for a lot of people.
100%.
In England, it's no different. In Canada, it's no different. Like, you wave around the Union Jack, you wave around the maple leaf. Indigenous people suffered at the hands of
100%.
erecting their flag on soil.
Absolutely.
Right? The Irish, who are white people,
Yeah.
weren't considered human by the crown, right? And these are things. This is what I'm saying. Like, I have yet to see, and maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. I have yet to see the conversation where people are backlashing and slandering the Irish people for speaking out against the Queen. Has anybody? Has it come up online at all?
I think I haven't seen it. I mean, I saw but I'm not on Irish Twitter. I'm on Black Twitter, so I
Right,
saw
and that's another
the
thing.
response of Black Twitter, and just speaking to what you said, I learned a lot. I didn't know the word loot is an Indian word.
Pajama,
Yeah,
cummerbund, veranda.
Yeah, but that it was attributed to the fact that they took so many diamonds from India.
They looted.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think of course I laughed, when you had mentioned what you said about Prince Harry. It reminded me of the tweet that somebody had said about the Queen, never having to pay rent.
Yeah.
And basically was just you're just living off vibes, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then they dragged me for calling him jobless.
Right. They said, this was the tweet. Can't stop thinking about how that lady lived nearly 100 years, never had a job, never paid rent, just lived off public dollars, stolen wealth, and vibes. We've never seen anything like her. She just might be the greatest grifting parasite the world has ever seen. And it's like when you, but again, it's like part of what makes social media dope is that people who like, if there was no social media, all we would see was mainstream media, this kind of celebration of mourning, we wouldn't hear the other side. And somebody like me who knew a little bit, but I didn't know about Biafra. Like I didn't know about these things. So I have 50 more million questions, but I do want to pass it to Trouble and Miracle as well to kind of hop into the conversation.
So I don't have a question. I have more of a statement. And my statement is about how your specific case, especially with Jeff Bezos jumping into the conversation, but not criticizing the Irish celebration of the death of the Queen,
Right.
goes to show it's like another piece of evidence for the fact that Black women are the most disenfranchised people in this country.
Right.
He felt it easier to come at you than it would be to come at the Irish people, literally dancing on social media to the occasion.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
And, my partner, while all this was happening, she would read tweets to me sometimes or let me know what was going on. Like I didn't have access to to it myself.
Yeah.
But she would kind of narrate things or send me screenshots, etc. And another way in which I knew I had people were Nigerians and African Americans and other Africans and, all types of people were waging Twitter wars as well.
Absolutely.
Behind this case.
Yes.
So that, in addition to those letters of support, I also saw like real material supports, even my trolls, because I'm always getting into it with, arguing about misogyny, for example, with Nigerian men and sometimes African-American men. You may remember me from the tweet. The misogyny, struggle has made me like some firm enemies and trolls, right? And even those joined up to go around to be there as soldiers, if you will, underneath whoever was coming to say. And how did they do it? Not by, abusing, but by facts. They would post links, they would post videos and saying, this is the information you are lacking to understand where she's coming from. And we agree with her because we share this story as well. Alaibo. Alaibo is the name of, it's the Igbo name for our land. Ala meaning our mother's breast, kind of. This is our turf. And Igbo land, came hard because this was our story. And this was our collective pain. And I was talking about it.
Beautiful.
But that was, African Americans as well. Black Twitter for me is not just African Americans. Black Twitter for me is also, just Black people in general on Twitter. And so the African American subsection of Black Twitter was also riding hard, taking huge hits as well, especially the outspoken Black women, the feminists who came, right? So I was hearing this, I wasn't seeing it, but hearing it kind of vicariously and also feeling that there was a lot of support in the letters, but a lot of support sort of, on ground as well, where these battles were happening on Twitter, on Facebook, and elsewhere.
I do find it fascinating that you engage, because I don't think people probably just engage you not knowing that you're a professor of applied linguistics.
But what I wanted to say is, here in Pittsburgh, this was deemed one of the worst cities for Black women to live. And for me, the legacy of the Crown is that statistic is that anti-Black, they globalized anti-Blackness. So when people talk about why pick these Black women, it's because the Crown helped through media in their campaigns to say Black people did not matter, whether it's here in America or in the African continent or in the wider diaspora, is that Black pain, Black people do not matter.
Absolutely.
And so if you want to build up your brand, you dog out Black people.
That's it. I mean, look at how their media treat Meghan, right? Meghan Markle.
Absolutely.
And the viciousness they reserve for her, and she talks about how the fact that her, her heritage and her appearance as a light-skinned biracial, person, had before shielded her from a lot of this. But she didn't really hit that racism till she encountered the British press.
Absolutely.
And my goodness, they gave it to her. They made her that target, because it didn't even fit sort of, they were guessing about how dark her child would be and all kinds of things. They were painting her exactly as you described, that this disposable creature, but not just disposable, worthless, and on top of it, vile as well. Blamed everything on her. She was a stand-in for their misogynoir, their overall hatred of Black women in general.
And I may be wrong, but I know Stormy's had talked about, how racist Britain was, and I'm right in the soccer. That's the one they were throwing the bananas. So UK has this legacy of
the hooligan culture of football,
of the anti-Blackness. But you talked about your partner, and I just wanted how much you big up Black love and show Black love. And the cool thing about your Twitter is the meetups, the matchmaking.
Yes.
And so it's not all negative. And so I always say sometimes fighting white supremacy. Yeah. We have to build these communities, and you've been able to build a lot of community, on social media. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. I'm a very strategic tweeter. Now, of course, that tweet, the Queen, and that was an emotional outburst. That was not planned. That was not strategic. Typically, I'm very purposeful about certain content, certain rotations, thinking about certain audiences, also thinking about the times when I'm tweeting. I know prime time for Nigerians, I know prime time for the US and things like that. So one thing that I purposefully, and you recognize it because that's exactly what I'm doing, is I literally focus on elevating and highlighting Black love. Black love for self, for us, because, we all we got. Black love in general, for one another. Black beauty, Black brilliance. Just like Issa Rae said, I'm rooting for everybody Black. I'm rooting for everything Black. And Pan-African at that, because my Black, or my concept of Black, is not just limited to one type of Black, right? And I strategically do that. I strategically try to highlight a Pan-African, inclusive Blackness. I strategically try to highlight and praise and shower all kinds of love on Black women. You may be familiar with how I always say fine aunties. I'm a connoisseur of fine aunties. I love fine aunties, right? And who is a fine auntie? Fine auntie is a woman generally, right? A Black woman specifically, but I think any woman can be a fine auntie. But the ones that I usually have in mind are Black women over 35. Because there's also the whole idea that once you reach a certain age as a woman, that you lose your appeal, your beauty, you somehow don't fuck anymore, and you're just not about anything, beautiful or sexual or sexy or hot or anything like that. So I very strategically big up fine aunties. I big up big women, right? Fleshy, curvaceous, luscious women, right? Just to, well, number one, talk about shit I like, right? And number two, show that we are worthwhile. We're wonderful. Why wouldn't you envy and love us? Look how gorgeous we are, right? So yeah, it's very, very intentional. And my matchmaking is, people get mad because I've done these threads for everybody except straight men. But it's coming.
They have their own. They have their own tweets. They're good.
And we're gonna, have one of your articles be our white pages. But I did have one more question before we close out, because I saw in the wake of Queen Elizabeth's passing and this conversation around colonialism,
Yeah.
a call for reparations, right? I think Jamaicans
Yeah.
were saying, like, instead of having more, like, we need reparations.
Absolutely.
You spoke, you taught us about this very recent history
Yeah.
around Biafra. Is there a movement or calls for some type of reparation? Because, we've seen reparations happen with the Holocaust of Jewish people,
Absolutely.
deservedly so. You mentioned, I'm part of the National African Americans Reparation Commission that was started by Dr. Ron Daniels.
Absolutely. First of all, the Queen never once apologized. She never once opened her mouth to say sorry. Everybody, the history records know what happened and what was done in her name and for her crown. Not just to the people of Biafra, but you talked about the Kenyans, the Indians, the indigenous people, right? Native Americans. So it's just never once have they taken responsibility and just said sorry. So what I am advocating for, and what a lot of people are advocating for, number one is to just recognize what you did and say sorry. And then we can move on to conversations about what does reparations look like. It could look like leaving the oil alone.
Right.
It could look like, actual payments and repayments, of the compensating the 3 million lives that were lost.
Right.
I don't know. We haven't even gotten that far yet because we can't even get them to admit the shit they did.
Wow. Man.
And how does that feel as a language professor to know? It's so, it could all be so simple.
Yeah.
And then just that refusal.
They continue to dehumanize us. That's what it feels like. We are not even human enough to them to sit down with them as equals and say, this is what you did to us. And they recognize it and say, yes, this is what we did, and we're sorry. Even though it's open record. The fact that they never open their mouth and sit down with us and say it shows that they continue to view us as less than and undeserving of the common acknowledging of our humanity and our dignity to say, yes, we harmed you, and we're sorry.
Powerful way to end.
And that's why we call it This Week in White Supremacy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is a perfect synopsis of the theme of this show.
And the article we're going to share as our white pages is a recent article Dr. Anya just wrote, Critical Race Pedagogy for More Effective and Inclusive World Language Teaching. Asking folks to, you said you liberated this article from behind.
I did. It was
paywall.
behind a paywall, and I used money from my research funds to pay the publisher to not put a paywall on it, because I believe that the teachers that I work for and I write for, who benefit from my work, and who I also benefit from the work they're doing because they provide me with material for scholarship and investigation, I believe that they should have free access to the results of the work I do for them and with them.
Well, we greatly appreciate you doing that, and appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. I know you've been kind of bombarded with media requests, that you would take the time to come and sit with us and be so passionate, so vulnerable, and so open about his journey. And we're thankful to have this relationship with you now, and looking forward to continue to support the incredible work that you're doing at Carnegie Mellon University.
Thank you.
And onwards and upwards.
I'm in the Modern Languages Department in the Second Language Acquisition Program.
Absolutely. All right. Any closing thoughts? And I know we got some announcements. Trevor?
I just want to say I am extremely grateful for you sitting down and talking with us, because you taught me a lot just by listening to everything that you were saying, and you provided not only us but our viewers with the context that is needed to understand why there's a mixed reaction to the death of the Queen. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, for hosting me, and thank you for, being my entryway into Black Pittsburgh, where I want to dwell.
Oh, that means two things.
Let's get it.
Come on, let's go.
That means two things. BlackPittsburgh.com.
Yeah,
Yes.
Thank thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
know it's a lot, so I really appreciate you
Thank you.
trusting us, and thank you so much to your partner as well. Just love y'all.
I took
Thank
the
you.
time to come here, and I do get a lot of requests, but because you are Black people working for us, and I want to be a part of this community and what you're doing. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see in this channel, please subscribe and click on the notification bell so that anytime we upload a new video, you will get notified.